And I just wanted to, I wouldn't be doing ourselves justice if I skipped entirely over the situation of the market and I think the optimism that is warranted. So the first thing I would like to say, although it's not directly related to the subject of the panel, is that actually we're quite positive about the market. I think we should realize, I've been to this conference and many conferences over the years, and we've always had this tendency to talk ourselves down into a state of depression. And I think that is certainly unwarranted this time around. We should realize that we have quite a momentous situation right now in the world economy, where we have had the strongest growth of the world economy since 2010, so that's the last 7 years. And it's the first time since 10 years that all the global economies are more or less growing simultaneously. So I think we should be a little bit more optimistic about where the future leads us in terms of the demand development. Somebody will obviously remind us, and as I have the panelists this morning, about how supply-demand develops, and we see also there, certainly for now, a very positive development of the demand and a very limited ordering of the supply and a very limited inventory level build-up as well. So certainly I want to leave, if I can speak just 2 seconds about that, the audience with a positive view that we see the market fairly positively over the next couple of years. And we should try to look at the data rather than the psychology of 22,000 TEU ships, because that's not necessarily telling the full story. So coming back to the threat that I think of the global economy not developing, that threat I think we should safely say is subsided. But of course there is a threat or an opportunity, if you look like it, on technology development for our industry. The development is happening both inside and outside the industry. I'm actually surprised to see that Alibaba is not part of this forum, because they are also running front in terms of developing simple solutions for customers, where they can do a multitude of things through the same platform, anywhere from arranging trade finance to export licenses to customs clearance to last mile delivery, all with a one-stop shop solution. So that's also a development that is taking place, which is not technically speaking coming from this industry, but it is certainly infringing on the role that this industry has traditionally played for customers. So advances in cross-border e-commerce, advances in the supply chain digitization are certainly here, and they are going faster than we think. So if we just look at the number of startups, I mean, many of them are in the room, but you see that there's an exponential development of the number of companies that are starting up in this part of the business, because obviously there is a need, there's a job to be done in terms of the eyes of the customers. There's a need that needs to be resolved that the existing players at this moment are collectively not resolving. So you see the number of players that is in there, and I'm sure if we draw this line to 2020, there's going to be an exponential growth even from where we are in 16 and 17. You may be a little bit cynical in saying, why is somebody who's just been faced with this tremendous cyber attack on stage talking about digital innovation? I would like to think that the cyber attack has actually been quite a learning experience for us. First of all, we've proven to ourselves that we can actually manage to move 15% of global trade without the support of systems. Admittedly, we can't do that for a very long period of time, but for 2 weeks in a row, we've actually managed to keep things moving without the support of systems, which has been a very sobering but also very important learning experience for us. But it also has renewed our resolution that the digital experience is here to stay, and that there's no cyber terrorist who can put a dent in that ambition. Smaller customers, I mentioned Alibaba this morning, smaller customers are typically the ones that stand to gain from the digitization, because a lot of cumbersome operations and a lot of very detailed operations that they have to go through today to export their cargo will be simplified for them. And for the large customers, the supply chains can be simplified by looking much more at integrated solutions using digital services. There is still the human element, as many of our customers remind us. There needs to be somebody at the other end of that phone that picks it up, and this is also an important learning from the cyber attack, that certainly for the 2-week period where we had no systems, we talked much more on the phone than we did through systems, and customers do appreciate that as well. If we look at the landscape, and it's been mentioned many times on the stage here, the landscape is simply too complex. It is the way we contract, it is the way we price, it is the way we agree on certain things with customers, it's managing the physical flow from a digital perspective. There's a lot of complexity right now that is created for historical reasons that digitization will actually manage to resolve. And I'm making a pitch here on behalf of our sister company, Damco, which is part of the Transportation and Logistics Division. If you look at the current landscape with all of the steps in it, in terms of the customs clearance, in terms of last mile delivery, it's quite a complex one. And our sister company, and I don't know whether we can say we've had it for 10 years, but certainly Trooijen has been launched by Damco, which is a digital freight forwarder that tries to simplify all of these processes into one, and tries to look at instant booking, instant confirmation, also instant payment, integrated document management, milestone transparency, and proactive exception handling. So I also urge you to look at what Trooijen can present for your company going forward. Then the one thing that we've also launched, a lot of the information flow in the supply chain is also linked to physical movement of cargo and physical movement of assets. And we have about $30 billion as a company invested in the physical assets that move trade globally. We have about $8 billion invested in terminals. We have about $20 billion invested in Maersk Line. So there's a lot of movement that we can track through the tracking of our assets that is available to us, and particularly the seamless tracking through terminals and through vessels that customers can benefit from. We have developed a technology called remote container management, where we track 250,000 reefers globally for Maersk Line, and it's not just about where the container is, it's also about what happened inside the reefer container, how the refrigeration is working, how the cargo is developing itself in terms of its condition. And that's a technology we will continue to develop also for the reefers. We're actually looking at a similar technology for dry containers. The problem with a dry container is that it doesn't generate any energy by itself. So with a reefer container, you can always say that the